A warm welcome to Podcast for Business. Podcast for Business is all about helping businesses share their knowledge, passion, expertise, news of events, workshops and seminars. Podcast for Business is brought to you in partnership with Network B2B, a structured networking in a relaxed environment. For more information about a group near you, visit networkb2b.co.uk. Thank you to this week's sponsor, Premier Homes in Spain. If you're looking for your own home in Spain, check out premierhomesinspain.com. All interviews featured in Podcast for Business, first featured in the Business Hour podcast. The Business Hour podcast brings you feel-good music as well to help you through your week. For more information, visit podcastforbusiness.co.uk. Sit back and enjoy Podcast for Business. In today's podcast, we're talking CDM, but we're not talking Cadbury's dairy milk. No, we're talking construction and design management regulations. I'll be talking to Julie Gelder from Topaz Health and Safety. If you're a property developer, contractor, architect, project manager, in fact, if you're involved in the construction industry, the information that Julie shares is very, very valuable. Sit back and enjoy the interview with Julie. It comes next, right here on Podcast for Business.
Like to share news about your business, event, seminar or workshop? Simply email steve@stevetwynham.com.
Well, it's a lovely morning in the city of Leeds. I'm sat in a lovely hotel, Park Plaza. I'm sat with Julie Gelder from Topaz Health and Safety. I look out the window and there's a load of scaffolding, which is quite appropriate when we're talking about health and safety. But we're talking about CDMs, Julie.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so tell me more. What is a CDM?
Well, everybody might think it stands for Cadbury's Dairy Milk, but it doesn't. It stands for the Construction Design and Management Regulations 2015.
And how does that relate then to the construction industry? What does it actually mean for people who work in that industry?
Well, it applies to everybody really that works in the construction sector, from property developers. So if you're building houses, you've got specific duties under a client, and also if you are a contractor, you've got specific duties to make sure you do your work as safely as possible. And also if you're a designer, like an architect or an engineer, you need to design with safety in mind.
Can you give us a bit of an example around that then? So, let's think about from the architect perspective, when you say design with safety in mind, what does that entail from them?
Okay, so it'll be things like you need to look at the buildability of a building. So you can design a pretty building, but if a contractor can't build it safely and a maintenance contractor can't maintain it safely, they can't get to bits to clean it, etc., then you're not complying with what the regulations say. So you need to look at good maintenance access and good buildability.
Just a picture just coming in my head there. I've just thought about something there. Tell me if I'm way off the market. So say somebody's doing an extension, okay, yeah, and their neighbour, for whatever reason, has got one of these gas meter readings or electrical things on the wall, and then somebody builds an extension but doesn't think it through, and they build the extension which doesn't give access to somebody else's safety. That needs to take into consideration. Is it things like that as well, Julie?
Yes, it is. It's so access to emergency shut-off valves and things like that. So you don't just look at your own building, what you're doing. You have to look at the environment around it as well. So if you are building an extension and you're reducing that gap between you and the other person's property, you ought to be able to get a scaffold down there. If you can't do that, it means that people can't maintain their side of the building, they can't clean their gutters, they can't, it just makes it really difficult and very expensive, because if you wanted to clean your gutters and you have to put up a full access scaffold over the top of your building to try and get to it, or hire a cherry picker instead of somebody being able to get up there with one of those window cleaners use like a
hose
sucker.
Yes,
so you don't even, if they can't even get down there to do it, it becomes very expensive. So it's not just about health and safety, it's actually about reducing the expense long term over the lifetime of a building.
Okay, and in terms of property developers, because you see all the programs where they make like property developing look easy, don't they? You know, you buy this for X, you sell it for Y, put a new kitchen in or whatever. But there's big health and safety requirements in that, isn't there? From making sure the wiring's correct just for a start. You know, where do you start? Where do you finish?
Well, with property developing, so if you're flipping houses or you're putting them up for rent or you're doing total refurb. So think about Homes Under the Hammer. It's a classic example of this. What you've got to look at is what contractors you're using from the outset. So are they competent to do the job that they're doing? It's all very well doing word of mouth, but you need to make sure that they are. They actually, you know, anybody says they can be a builder, but are they actually a builder? Have you got good testimonials? Are they competent under health and safety? And that's where we come in and help with things like pre-qualification assessments and that with contractors.
So, because if you don't do those checks and something goes wrong, not only will the contractor be in bother, you'll be in bother as well, won't you, for not doing the checks?
That's right. Under the CDM regulations, you have to. There is a specific requirement for clients, i.e., property developers, to make sure that they've got the right people with the right skills, knowledge, and experience. It is a specific legal requirement.
Okay. So, how do you help businesses do this then? Do you go and deliver some training, Julie? What do you do?
I suppose with people who've got like the client responsibility, i.e. property developers, what we do is go in and we help them set up systems where they can we can either help to assess their contractors and their designers, or we can give them the forms and the questionnaires to help them do it, or give them guidance on what sort of competence schemes the contractors can apply to. Like, for example, there's a thing called CHAS, which is all about safety in construction, which is what contractors belong to, or construction line, or anything like that. So we can give guidance, or we can write the systems in place for them, or we can do the whole thing. So there's lots of elements to it, because a client's duty goes all the way through from conception of a project right the way through to completion and handover to a usable building.
So do you work with project managers as well then?
Yes, we do quite a lot actually. I've got a project on at the moment where we're working with hand in hand with the project manager to deliver a complex project which is moving a lot of plant and equipment and designing systems to make sure that they run, when all the plant's put together, that it all runs properly and it's safe access. But we sit there with the project manager and say, oh, have we thought about this? Have we thought about how the maintenance engineer is going to get to that bit of the building? And then we get the architect to design in a separate section for access and things like that. So project managers, like an intermediate, they run a project, but they don't have the legal obligations under CDM like everybody else would. But we do work very closely with project managers.
So you work really, from, it could be like an architect doing an extension to a big project. I'm thinking like the one we're looking at there, that big building that's going up in City Square in Leeds.
Yeah.
You could work on something like that as well.
Absolutely. We provide a service called Client CDM Advisor, which goes all the way through that, looking at all the way through the construction and the design. We do design safety reviews with the design team, and then we can go and do site inspections. But also we work with the architects and the designers to provide what's called a principal designer service. Now, under CDM you're supposed to be a designer to provide that service, but we tend to be an advisor, so principal designer advisor, and that really does look at safety and design, working with hazard management registers, right the way through to interviewing contractors and stuff like that. So right from inception of a project, we'll provide the whole sort of safety side of things from a pre-construction point of view.
Well, and do these CDM regs, do they change now and again? I'll put it this way, do they get updated now and again, Julie?
Yes, well, the CDM regulations first come in 1994.
Okay.
And they've gone through two changes since then. So 2007 they changed, and then in 2015 they changed. And all that time I've been, when it was 95 regulations, there was a role called the planning supervisor, so I did that. Right from when it's 94 regulations, I should correct myself here, because they come in 95. So from 95, I was a planning supervisor. When it changed in 2007, I was what's called a CDM coordinator, which is probably more appropriate to the principal designer role now. And then in 2015, it changed to principal designer.
Wow. So look, we're here in Leeds, but do you just work in Yorkshire? Do you work across the UK? What do you do?
I actually work across the UK, predominantly in the north of England and North Wales. It's much easier to get to your sites, obviously, because you have to go to construction sites, they don't come to us. Funny enough.
Yeah.
Funny enough. Yeah, I mean, at the moment I've got quite a big project in Ruthin, but it's also we've got a site in Mocktra as well, which is in Conway. So I'm travelling across the A55 quite a lot on every fortnightly basis at the minute.
Right, okay. And if people want to get in touch with you and find out how we can help them, how can they do that?
That's quite easy. They can email me at julie@topazsafety.co.uk that's it, really. That's the best way to get in contact with me. Yeah.
So I would suggest then, you've listened to this and it's probably raised some questions for you, not for you, Julie, for the people listening. I suggest it's well worth giving Julie an email and having what I call a cappuccino moment. It's worth having that chat.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant, and I love cappuccino.
Julie, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast for business. If you would like to feature your business in Podcast for Business and the Business Hour podcast, I would love to hear from you. Simply email steve@stevetwynham.com. The Business Hour podcast is produced and presented by Steve Twynham. Copyright applies.